I was destitute. My alcohol had become my water. My water was my alcohol, and I would do cocaine like pretty much every day, all the time. Lust after women, just like I was in a bad spot, like a really, really bad place. So my real dad passed when I was 2 years old, and he was actually murdered by his drug dealer. And he did cocaine. And I told myself all my life that was one drug I was not gonna touch. And so I started drinking first, and I loved to sing, and I would just be screaming all the time because I was screaming out my emotions. But it started with drinking. Eventually, I moved into ecstasy, and I used to party. I was a DJ down in Florida as a part-time job. And so like the gateway was really, I would say, not having Jesus in my life. My grandparents would take me to church, and we went to a church, but I didn't know Jesus. And I went up to Chicago, and I was up there, and this is right before I stopped drinking alcohol and drugs, because I was still doing those things, even though new things had been happening in my life, and God was delivering me, taking me out of where I was. And I was up there with a surgeon, and I remember him telling me, like, John, you're gonna die if you keep on doing cocaine. And it wasn't the first time somebody had told me, like, hey, you gotta stop doing these things. And so it was at that point where I believed that God was speaking through people and telling me, like, you need to stop. And so it's like a country song. Like, I lost my house, I lost my cars, I lost my girlfriend, all the things that were bad just started happening to me. And I got into trouble and caught charges. I had a couple friends who I used to party with, and they came over to my house. And one of them was sober, and he had been sober for a couple weeks, and he was professing Christianity. And he said, John, there's a lot of men out here in Charleston that need help. There's a need for this. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, we were just partying, doing drinks and drugging. Where's this coming from? And so he asked me to get on our knees together, and that was the first time I probably prayed in like maybe 20 years. We got down on our knees and prayed right there, and it didn't happen right away, but it was shortly after that, when I was telling you about the alcohol situation. I'd wake up out of bed after sleeping for an hour, and I was like seizuring. I was like really, really in a bad place, and I just didn't know what I was gonna do. And I got down on my knees, and I begged God to take away my addictions to alcohol and drugs, and he reached in and he delivered me and redeemed me, and he's justified me, and he's been sanctifying me ever since. So, I've been purchased with a high price, and I know that, and that's ever since that day. I mean, it's just been one thing after another, him just showing his glory. To the young people out there, if God is calling you, if he's pulling you into a relationship with him, that's his nature. We're supposed to glorify him. That's the whole entire point of this purpose of this walk, is to understand that we do have God here with us, and to know him. And if we understand his nature, he will draw us in, because God hates sin, and he's holy.